Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Discriminating Gamer. You know, I'm really having trouble with my hearing.
Can you describe the symptoms?
Sure, Marge has blue hair and Homer's a fat guy. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go ahead and take a look at Era from World Within. Era World Within is a card game for 2 players, although you can do a 4-player variant. But in this game, players are going to play through different historical eras with their own unique deck of cards against an opponent who has their own historical era that they're using for combat. Now, I'm not going to get into the weeds of gameplay. I'm just going to give you the basics, a basic overview of the game, and then tell you what I think. Now, as I mentioned, you're each going to get a deck of cards. Now, the base game comes with 4 historical eras. There are many more decks of historical eras that you can play with this game. You can just plug right into it. So you have your deck of cards for the historical era you're going to play. And there are, I believe, 10 conflict cards in each deck. And you're actually not going to keep those. You're going to give those to your opponent, and that's what they're going to use to attack you with during the game. But then you're going to go ahead and set the tokens that are going to come into play during the game out there. And then, of course, you will shuffle your deck. Now, your decks have many different kinds of cards. Many cards have kind of a symbol next to them which shows that they are a unique card, meaning you have a lot of this same card in your deck, but you can only ever have one out in front of you at a time. You will have the opportunity to use those other cards for other things during the game and to enhance the power of the card that you have out there. Now, what you're doing then over the course of the game is there are several steps. Now, many of the cards that you'll play during your turn will have the progress token symbol on that. So if you have at the beginning of your turn any cards out in front of you with the progress token symbol, you will gain progress tokens. These are kind of your score. You're going to go ahead and collect these. Now, you may also have different kinds of resources on the cards out in front of you, and after you collect the progress tokens, you go and you see, do any of your cards have any of the special resources that you can gain during the game, and you can go ahead and collect those at that time. Next, you have the card dealing phase. Essentially, all things being equal, you are going to deal yourself 8 cards from your deck. You're going to go ahead and get those cards out. But critically, you do not look at the cards. You don't just look at them and, oh, this is what I'm going to do. It's not like that. You have to keep these cards that you've dealt yourself face down because you're going to use them for different things. Next, you have this card committing phase. And what you're going to do here is you're going to decide if you want to commit cards to conflict or do you want to commit them to building. Now, conflict, obviously, that's going to be later when you attack your enemies, and you're going to need cards to kind of power the conflict cards to do that. Or you can actually use the cards that you're building with as resources to buy cards you want to keep then at that point in your hand. So you kind of want to see exactly what cards you have in your hand, maybe what you want to keep there and what you want to put out. So you go ahead then and commit those cards. Next, you actually do card play, meaning this is where you get the cards that you want and you can play them in front of you to kind of create your tableau. But as you're doing this, you have to pay for them. And so you can go ahead and the cards that you've committed to building, you can use that to pay for those cards at that time. And there's different things you can do during this phase. Like I say, you can just put the cards down. You may get a landmark card that you can just put up there that will trigger off of the cards you play to give you resources. You can also flourish cards, meaning if you've got those cards with those kind of unique symbols, you can like put them under there to get to make those cards more powerful to do more things with them. Now, next you have the conflict phase. Now, you're going to be able to put cards out there in the conflict area that, as I say, are from your opponent's from their deck, from their conflict cards. And usually there are things like skulls or kind of the battle symbol there. And you can use these to either attack your opponent's conflict cards or to attack their tableau cards. Now, some of the tableau cards they're going to put out are permanent. You can't attack them. But many of them you will be able to attack to try to get out of the game. Now, what you're doing, though, is you've got the cards out there. In order to power them, you actually have to draw another card from those cards you've committed. Now, most of the cards you have will have a number of stars next to them, and those stars will then kind of bounce off of the conflict cards you get there. You'll figure out the factor, and then that will allow you to attack your enemies. And if you can kind of beat their damage threshold, then you will destroy that card. And if you destroy 3 cards that way from their tableau, that can be a victory condition. After the conflict phase, your opponent then will begin their turn. So players go back and forth. You are collecting progress tokens and resources. You are dealing out your cards. You're committing those cards to conflict or building. You are playing cards from your hand, using those building cards as a currency. You can also use currencies from your resources. You are going to the conflict phase where you are attempting to attack your opponent's conflict cards or their tableau cards. But you're doing this back and forth until, as I say, one player has 3 of their cards destroyed, or the first player to reach 15 progress tokens will win. Era. We'll get back to the review in just a moment. I want to take a minute to ask you to check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk about history, books on history, military history. I even post some of my lectures for my classes on there. Please check that out. Please subscribe to that channel. And now, back to the review. All right, so Era is a very interesting card game. You know, on one hand, it kind of feels like a lot of, 2-player card games, like, of course, Magic the Gathering or Android Netrunner. But this has some very unique ideas and mechanisms going on throughout the game. I think it's very interesting. I don't know that I've ever played a game where you draw your hand and you can't look at it, right? You have to do things with it before you can see what the faces of the cards are. So that's pretty cool, and there's a lot of chance there. But as the game progresses and you get to know your deck a little bit better and what cards are there, what cards are already out, then kind of a strategy reveals itself, and you can kind of make ideas about exactly how you want to use those cards going forward. So that's a very interesting thing. Again, I don't know that I've seen anything quite like that before, which is very interesting. Obviously, it's a race. You're trying to get to those 13 tokens, or trying to destroy your opponent's cards, which is not an easy thing to do. The players can strengthen their cards; they can flourish. The strength of the cards can increase. So there's a lot of time and care it takes to building up an attack, or to even try to defend your own cards, which is a very important part of the game as well. So that's very interesting. Now, the game. So the gameplay here is, I think, very, very good and engaging. Now, I should point out too, the theme here is very interesting, and where I'm a historian, I find that very interesting. I like how they represent kind of the different historical eras, and it's fun, this idea of historical eras battling each other, right? It's not just like individuals from historical eras fighting. It's like the whole historical era is fighting each other, which is, again, I think, very fun. And I can't think of anything quite like that I've seen from a thematic point of view. World Spanner Factions, which is a great game. There you have like individuals from different eras fighting, and as I say here, it's like the whole era is fighting. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate kind of how they kind of abstract a lot of the things from history to represent solid concepts in the game. Now, as I'm aware, this game was on it was a crowdfunding game from like 10 years ago, and as I understand it, just for various reasons, it was holed up, and we got an advanced copy. I believe it will soon be out for the backers, and then I don't know if it's going to retail or not after that. But it's a really interesting game that I enjoyed. I know Ray and I have played a few games, and it's interesting to see how it works out, and how cutthroat and how ruthless it can be, and just how engaging it is. Now, with all of this said, I do think there is a bit of a learning curve here. Like I say, some of the concepts initially are not that intuitive. I think, too, my feeling is The rule book is good. It's not a bad rule book, but I think for me, I feel like it's a bit longer than it needed to be for some of the concepts. I think some of the things could have been explained a little bit more clearly, but that's kind of a minor complaint. Generally, I think it works. So on the Cody scale, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to give Era a 7. I think it's a good, solid card game where you're up against your enemies in this really fun theme. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for joining us today on The Discriminating Gamer. As always, we'd ask you to please leave a comment for us here on YouTube, on Board Game Geek, on our Facebook page, on X. We really love to hear from you. I'd also ask you to go ahead and check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk about military history, books on history, fun things like that. And if you do really enjoy the content you see here on The Discriminating Gamer, I would humbly ask you to click on the Super Thanks button and leave a tip. You know, I know a podiatrist that makes house calls. He drives a tow truck. Because of budget cutbacks, the Earth Star Alliance has only given us one escape pod.